The most interesting question to us now was whether this rock reef communicated sufficiently with the island for us to get onto it. Abandoning conjectures, tying very firmly our canoe up to the rocks, a thing that seemed, considering she was jammed hard and immovable, a little unnecessary, but you can never be sufficiently careful in this matter with any kind of boat. Off we started among the rock boulders. I would climb up onto to a rock table, fall off it on the other side onto the rocks again, with more or less water on them, then 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 get a patch of singing sand under my feet. Then, with varying suddenness, get into more water, deep or shallow, broad or narrow pools among the rocks. Out of that, over more rocks, etc., etc. My companions, from their noises, evidently were going in for the same kind of thing, but we were quite cheerful, because the probability of reaching the land seemed increasing. Most of us arrived into deep channels of water, which here and there cut in between this rock reef and the bank. Bobo was the very first to find the way into certainty. He was, and I hope still is, a perfect wonder at this sort of work. I kept close to Bobo, and when we got to the shore, the rest of the wanderers being collected, we said, "Chances are there's a village round here," and started to find it. After a gay time in a rock-encumbered forest, growing in a tangled, matted way on a rough hillside at an angle of 45 degrees, Bobo sighted the gleam of fires through the tree stems away to the left, and we bore down on it, listening to its drums. Viewed through the bars of the tree stems, the scene was very picturesque. The village was just a collection of palm mat building huts, very low and squalid. In its tiny street, an affair of some 60 feet long and 20 wide, were a succession of small fires. The villagers themselves, however, were the striking features in the picture. They were painted vermilion all over their nearly naked bodies, and were dancing enthusiastically to the good old rumpa-tump-tump-tump tune, played energetically by an old gentleman on a long, high-standing white and black painted drum. They said as they had been dancing when we arrived, they failed to hear us. Bobo secured a well. I don't know exactly what to call it for my use. It was, I fancy, the remains of the village clubhouse. It had a certain amount of palm thatch roof and some of its left-hand side left, and the rest of the structure was bare old poles with filaments of palm mat hanging from them here and there. And really, if it hadn't been for the roof, one wouldn't have known whether one was inside or outside it. The roof was trodden earth, and in the middle of it, a heap of white ash and the usual 2 bush lights, laid down with their burning ends propped up off the ground with stones, emitting, as is their wont, a rather mawkish, but not altogether unpleasant smell, and volumes of smoke, which find its way out through the thatch, leaving on the inside of it a rich, oily varnish of a bright, warm brown color. They give a very good light, provided one keeps an eye on them and knocks the ash off the end as it burns gray. The bush light's idea of being snuffed. Against one of the open work sides hung a drum covered with rawhide and a long hollow bit of tree trunk, which served as a cupboard for a few small articles. I gathered in all these details as I sat on one of the hard-wood benches, waiting for my dinner, which Isaac was preparing outside in the street. The atmosphere of the hut, in spite of its remarkable advantages in the way of ventilation, was oppressive, for the smell of the bush lights, my wet clothes, and the natives who crowded into the hut to look at me, made anything but a pleasant combination. The people were evidently exceedingly poor, clothes they had on very little of. The 2 headmen had on old French military coats and rags, but they were quite satisfied with their appearance, and have evidently felt through them in touch with the European culture, for they lectured to the others on the habits and customs of the white man with great self-confidence and superiority. The majority of the village had a slight acquaintance already with this interesting animal, being, I found, Adumas. They had made a settlement on Kembe Island some 2 years or so ago. Then the Fans came and attacked them, and killed and ate several. The Dumas left and fled to the French authority at Najol, and remained under its guarding shadow until the French came up and chastised the Fans, and burnt their village. And the Adumas, when things had quieted down again, and the Fans had gone off to build themselves a new village for their burnt one, came back to Kembe Island and their plantation patch. They'd only done this a few months before my arrival, and had not had time to rebuild, hence the dilapidated state of the village. They are, I am told, a Congo region tribe, whose country lies southwest of Franceville, and, as I have already said, are the tribes used by the French authorities to take convoys up and down the Ogwe to Franceville, more to keep this route open than for transport purposes, the rapids rendering it impracticable to take heavy stores this way, and making it a 36-day journey from Najol with good luck. The practical route is via Loango and Brazzaville. The Adumas told us the convoy which had gone up with the vivacious government official had had trouble with the rapids and had spent 5 days on Kondo, dragging up the canoes empty by means of ropes and chains, carrying the cargo that was in them along on land until they had passed the worst rapid, and then repacking. They added the information that the rapids were at their worst just now, and entertained us with reminiscences of a poor young French official who had been drowned in them last year. Indeed, they were just as cheering as my white friends. As soon as my dinner arrived, they politely cleared out, and I heard the devout Mimbo holding a service for them, with hymns in the street, and this being over, they returned to their drum and dance, keeping things up distinctly late, for it was 11:10 p.m. when we first encountered the village.